we are live on location at the wonderful Stanford University. This is the closest I'll ever get to doing any kind of academic achievement here, but I am thrilled to be with Professor Jennifer Aaker. No relation to that other Aaker, right?
Yes, no, strong relation.
Yeah, he has inspired us throughout this week. But she is now not just a professor, and I'm sure you've authored many things, but specifically we're talking about the Dragonfly Effect. So congratulations, by the way, on the book. And the subhead is Quick, Effective and Powerful Ways to Use Social Media to Drive Social Change. So I'm going to ask you the obvious question, which is, why did you decide to write this book? What was the inspiration behind it?
Yeah. So one thing that you're seeing right now is that there's a dramatic trust deficit with consumers and how much they believe for-profit organizations, how much they believe in nonprofit organizations, how much they believe government. And so that's a problem right now as a marketer, as a brand builder. How are you going to address that trust deficit? And there's other trends, which is companies are starting to try and more systematically understand how to harness social media to build up their brand, tell stories that otherwise wouldn't have been told, cultivate social good within their organization and talk about what employees are excited by in a way that customers can get excited by. And so all of these things were coming together, and we saw this as an opportunity to have a conversation around why do ideas become infectious, why do some ideas become infectious and why others don't. How do you build a brand from bottom up or inside out, relating to some of your own work? How do you take the research on happiness and emotional contagion and bake it into organizations, and specifically how you build campaigns that grow in momentum over the course of time. And then I think lastly, we just wanted to do something positive in the world. We thought really that the dragonfly, which is the only insect that flies in all directions and it's a symbol of happiness and transition, has not only a great ability to symbolize something that we think a lot of organizations are searching for, but also an opportunity to spread more social good.
Before I actually ask you about, let's say, the central premise of the book, and maybe the 2 or 3 key takeaways, because I know you have the 4 characteristics, focus, etc., but we'll get to that in a second. It's interesting because there almost seems to be this belief that it's instant credibility or instant authenticity just at social. So there's this overuse in a way that just by being social or integrating social, there's going to be authenticity. And then on top of that, it seems though when a brand gets involved into that, all bets are off, because all that trust and authenticity kind of flies out the window, unlike a dragonfly, but flies out the window. So maybe just talk a little bit about this kind of what is real and what isn't, what is hype and what is hope with respect to social media, and then specifically how can brands kind of get involved and embrace that without becoming like the oil to the water.
Yeah.
You know, that is trust, authenticity, and then this idea of, you know, we'd like to use the guise of greater good, but ultimately all we care about is just sell, sell, sell.
Yeah. So a couple of things. One is you're seeing, people believing people. So if you have an individual at a company, and that individual has a vision, and maybe it relates to the company's vision as well, that individual has increasing amounts of power to tell their stories about why they're at that company or why they believe in that company, and have those be believed where the company says the exact same thing. This is what we stand for, this is what we believe in. And by the mere fact that they're a corporation and or how they're saying things feel manufactured or overly marketed, people distrust that organization, whereas they might trust an individual. And so that's one big trend that's happening, which speaks to this.
It's like that concept that I introduced this week, which is non-media, which is people don't want to talk to a shoe. People don't want to be friends with the shoe.
Yeah.
They want to talk to the humans behind the shoe.
So what companies are giving these individuals voices? Either, consumers like at JetBlue, the terminal man has his own voice. It's not the voice of JetBlue, it's a different voice, but JetBlue allows him to have his voice and kind of empowers him. And which companies like Zappos are empowering employees within the organizations to have their own voice, give their own Twitter handle, etc. And then just to your other question, I think what pulls apart hype versus hope has a lot to do with what is at the core of a campaign. Is it meaning? Is it something that feels authentic,
Right.
that why the company got started. And if it does, and people have the ability to be transparent about that and provide language that inspires others, then I think that's where you connect meaning to social media and you get these big changes, these big movements. And when that doesn't happen, that's when they fall flat.
All right, so give me the very quick elevator pitch in terms of the Dragonfly Effect and those key takeaways without giving too much away, because obviously we want people to go and buy the book.
So one of the key things is focus. What's your single focus goal? It sounds easy. It is amazing how hard that is to do. And there's a couple of tricks to it to create a good goal versus a poorly framed goal. Grab attention. What do you make doing that makes people look? Again, that seems also obvious, but what actually grabs attention in this new environment is very different than what used to. Engage, which has a lot to do with kind of falling in love with a cause or a person or a campaign or an organization. What makes people step closer? And that has a lot to do with authenticity and storytelling and personal connection. And then the fourth wing of the Dragonfly is really how do you enable others to act? So if you do have a single focus goal and you do tell your story, then others can act on your behalf. And that's where, again, you get these infectious
So this kind of this pass along, this empowerment, etc.
Yeah.
And I would even ask you for an example, but this morning we heard the example, which I thought was quite well told, of Mother Teresa,
Yeah.
who kind of did all four of those characteristics, those four wings.
Yeah.
It really has been a pleasure meeting you and getting to know you, and no doubt we will continue to do that. But for all of you out there, do yourselves a favor and go purchase the Dragonfly Effect, quick, effective, and powerful ways to use social media to drive social change. That sounds like a pretty worthy cause.
Thanks,
Thanks, Jen.
Bye.
It's time to flip the funnel now. Pick up a copy of my new book, available wherever books are sold.